Hello, it's Wednesday, August the 6th. I'm Alec Hogg. This is your BizNews Briefing. In this episode, Emma Powell, South African Police Services, Pretoria High School for Girls, what's next there, and what's next for Donald Trump's tariffs that he is imposing on the world. We'll also have a double-part focus on Palantir, the hottest stock ever known in stock markets. And then an influencer in Cape Town gets a pretty smelly surprise. That's in our tailpiece. We kick off today with an interview with one of South Africa's, longest running and best political columnists. William Saunderson-Meyer has been writing the Jaundiced Eye column for more than 3 decades. That makes it comfortably the longest running political column in South Africa. His latest edition is focusing on the humiliation of Emma Powell, the former spokesperson for the Democratic Alliance on International Relations. We spoke about that and other issues this morning. The full interview is on BizNews TV on YouTube. But let's kick off with my question to him of whether the Democratic Alliance, now that it's in the government of national unity, somehow helped facilitate Powell's humiliation.
She could not have been sidelined without the Democratic Alliance's complicity in it. And more specifically, I think the complicity of the cabinet caucus within the DA, the people who are sitting in the GNU. They were completely silent when she was under enormous public pressure, when there were these allegations that she had committed treason, that when she was being intimidated, when she was being publicly abused, publicly humiliated. Especially the parliamentary caucus was entirely silent. Not a word was said in support of her. And as we now know, she was absolutely right. Mkhwanzi Jones doesn't have a diplomatic visa. He hasn't visited the United States. He's not going to visit the United States. The United States has made clear that they don't want him as an interlocutor between Ramaphosa and President Trump. So she's paying a heavy price, and it could not. There's a huge difference, as you have seen, between the response that Steenhuisen made, the DA leader made, to the excision of Whitfield, Deputy Minister of Trade, the DA Deputy Minister of Trade and Industry, which Ramaphosa was entirely entitled to do, but Steenhuisen went ballistic about that. Compare that with his response to essentially the forced resignation. Emma Powell resigned not because she performed poorly, not because she was incompetent at her job, but because she was excellent at her job. And yet he has not said a word in support.
Just to return to my conversation yesterday on the Pretoria High School for Girls, I did raise the question about the DA having the ministry or controlling the ministry in education, but being notable by its silence on these continued attacks by the Gauteng Education Department on Pretoria High School for Girls. And it really is, William, I can't see any extenuating circumstances for Lessufi and his gang. There just isn't anything there that, unless we've been given completely the wrong information, but it does appear to be just a concerted effort to close down or get rid of an excellent headmistress who's running an excellent school, and perhaps to get that school down to mediocrity. That's certainly what an outside observer would see. But the big question here is, again, getting back to the DA ministerial grouping that seems to have been absent, let alone its leader in this instance.
They haven't said a word. It's been a vicious, brutal campaign at Pretoria Girls High. incredibly personal, in a cruel campaign, the kind of campaign that screams out for DA intervention and for the DA to speak out. And as you say, they haven't said a word. There's no doubt that the DA is biting its lips biting its tongue in order not to offend its senior partner. I would not be surprised if the departure of Powell was not in response to an ultimatum that Ramaphosa said, to Citizen, get rid of this troublesome, irksome woman, and that for that reason he didn't fire Powell, but it was made very clear to her that she was not going to get support.
Mm. Speaking truth to power in South Africa has consequences even from your supposed friends. My colleague Chris Dane got hold of someone who speaks truth to power. He's the former Western Cape Provincial Police Commissioner, Dr. Lennit Max. She asked him to give some context from his perspective. Here's a guy who ran the police services in, well, as you will hear when you go into more detail in the interview earlier with William Saunderson-Meyer, the one province in South Africa that is running efficiently, the Western Cape. And he has a useful insight into exactly what Mkhwanzi is about, and indeed the response from the on-leave police minister who instructed the police commissioner to close down an anti-corruption unit. Interesting stuff.
You can expect that as a result of those allegations, that public trust in the police is less than 20%, 22%, as indicated last year. Yeah, as far as the Mkhwanzi issue is concerned, it's very serious allegations. You must understand, we are almost used as a new normal that the police are involved in corruption. But in this case, the allegations involved the judiciary as well. So that made it very, very problematic. And on the other hand, he referred to a cartel, which is now infiltrating the criminal justice system. And you must understand the South African Police Service is the primary entry point to the criminal justice system. And if seeing things goes wrong in the police, that it does have a domino effect on the rest of the criminal justice system. So it is very important that these allegations are properly investigated and find that whether there is any substance to it, whether there's prima facie evidence which needs further investigation, and and the whole issue should be dealt with thoroughly, without fear. So all eyes are actually on this commission, who's actually appointed by the president, to see what is the outcome there.
Mm. Meanwhile, what do you make of that letter written by the police minister now on special leave to disband the political killings task team?
The letter which was circulated on social media and purports to be the letter of coming from the minister Mkhulu is, in my view, a bit confusing and problematic, in the sense that I studied this letter, and nowhere in the letter could I find that the minister refers to that he received a briefing by this political killing staff team, which put him in a position to evaluate them and to assess them whether they are still productive or not. And then the mere fact that they wrote the letter to instruct the National Commissioner to close it, I think that was actually an operational interference, in my view. And the minister, in my view, acted beyond the purview of his responsibilities.
this is where the unthinkable happened. They just came here and took his car.
No. I sold it to them. What's this?
It's crime scene tape. Did they pay you at least?
Within 15 minutes, money was in my account.
Were you happy with the number they brought you?
I got almost the same price as what I paid for the car. Everything was easy, everything was painless.
Well, there you have it, South Africa. With We Buy Cars, you won't come short. I'll tell you really.
1.93.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
Right now, you can get the cheapest Forex rate around, right here, on Shift. Pay less for your dollars, pounds, and euros here, and get to shop more here, and do more here, and enjoy more ooh la la here. Shift also lets you trade and transfer currencies, and buy shares in the world's best companies. It all happens right here on Shift. You won't find a cheaper Forex rate anywhere else, no matter where you bank. Download the Shift app today.
Well, we cover the big stories here, and there's in the education side, there's nothing bigger right now than Pretoria High School for Girls. So let's return to that interview that I had yesterday with Mike Erasmus. He is the husband of the school's under fire principal, Philippa, and the school's governing body chair, Craig Hazlitt, to have a look at what's next for the school, and indeed, might this be a watershed moment for education in South Africa?
She has to wait for the outcome of the appeal, and that obviously will influence everything going forward. I mean, let's assume they say, no, we're not interested in your appeal, we're going to just carry on implementing the sanction. Then they'll have to tell her the dates that she's on her 3-month suspension from which date to which date. She'll have to go on suspension in the meantime, but obviously then the process will be fought very hard in the ELRC, which is the education version of the CCMA.
And you have got support from the union.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We've also got a fantastic legal team who's working very closely with the union. Some of the more prominent senior members of the bar in Pretoria and 2 of the prominent law firms in Pretoria have been working tirelessly on some of the stuff Craig said, and also offering support to the union on this matter as well. So there's a massive legal team.
Craig, I was delighted to hear the point that you made that Philippa is seeing this as much bigger than herself, because I've had headmasters or heads, a headmaster and other very senior people in education reaching out to me, and I'm very much on the fringes of this, and saying, please, you've got to discuss this, because we are too scared to say anything because we know we will be victimized. So clearly, in a way, it feels to me like Philippa Erasmus is being like Rob Hersoff was 4 years ago, when no one would be ever talking about the ANC government for fear of victimization. And he just broke the dam wide open by saying "Futsek ANC" at the BizNews conference. And since then, now people seem to have found their voice. Are you seeing any parallels with that, i.e. that this could be something that changes education in South Africa forever?
Absolutely, Alec. I actually had a lady reach out to me from Westville Senior Primary down in Durban, because she had obviously heard of our process, if you want to call it that. And she said to me, what do we do? And I said, whatever you do, if you believe it's the truth, challenge it. If you believe you've done wrong, learn from it and move on. And they firmly believed that the truth was not being told, so they challenged it. And I think that's probably the difference in Pretoria High School for Girls this year versus previous incidences, is that, previous incidences, everyone kept quiet and accepted it and rolled over and said, well, we're not going to say anything. We don't want to challenge the norm. And I think that, and I'm not trying, as an SGB, we want to work with the department. We're not here to drag us with the department. We wish that we would embrace arms and work together for the benefit of the kids, because ultimately that's what we do this for. It's for the learners, for our daughters and sons, if it's a dual medium school. But, and I think that's where the department's got a bit of a fright this time around, is that we haven't kept right, because we want the truth to be heard. And the truth is the facts. And that's all that we've done. We haven't given an emotional opinion. We haven't given an emotional guidance here. I mean, if you look at the narrative around this school in August, September last year, there were 5 to 10 articles a week stating and claiming that Pretoria High School for Girls is a racist school. It was clear. We've had to take some of those publications on because their stories were incorrect. And we've got the ombudsman demanding apologies, which we've got from some. But if you look at the narrative now, since Philippa's sanction was released, just over a week now, I've come across 15 to 20 articles, whether it be podcasts, media briefings, social media, whatever it may be. I have not seen one negative article on the school. And for me, that is important. The narrative has now changed because we have a voice and we are being heard, not on an emotional opinion, on facts. And I think that's very important because the last thing I would do is defend a school or a person if they were wrong. We need to learn. And unfortunately, this process from the beginning has been flawed. And unfortunately, Alec, whether the department like it or not, we're not going to keep quiet about it, and we're going to fight for what's right. And I don't want to use the word fight because it sounds very combative, but we're going to challenge, and we want the truth to be heard. And that's all. I sleep well at night, knowing that the truth's been told. It really is that simplistic and that important.
So clearly things are not at an end yet for Pretoria High School for Girls. Neither are they for Trump tariffs. And our partners at Bloomberg spoke earlier today to the former Trump official, Kate Kalutkowicz, who is the trade practice lead at Mkhwanzi Associates, on where the whole story might end.
The question is, what comes next? How should investors be mapping out the roadmap? Because you still have to figure out where the ultimate trade tariff rate ends, as well as how retaliatory tariffs might come into play here.
Yeah, it's extremely challenging to predict. And so I'm not going to predict where we're going, but I will tell you this remains extremely dynamic and extremely turbulent because at the end of the day, what we know about President Trump more than anything is that he always wants to negotiate. He always thinks he can get a better deal. So, although the dust has settled for several trading partners, which have, negotiated the outlines of some broad agreements and have some calm for the moment, the president is going to continue to try to change this landscape in a way that makes sense for U.S. manufacturing and more investment into the U.S. market. Those are his key goals. He will keep working on that. We've got more than 3/4 of his presidency to go. So I think we're going to have to continue to be prepared.
Be prepared, but how are we measuring actually the progress on this, Kate? There's been a lot of discussions about these what are effectively handshake agreements at this point.
Yep.
And when we talk about those investments, these commitments that these countries are promising, I guess who's really going to keep track of whether those countries actually follow through?
This is really the important question because I think, these are not legal documents yet. They're not legal texts with enforcement mechanisms. And so I think everyone is going to be very careful about ensuring that President Trump remains happy. And the happy President Trump of today is not necessarily the happy President Trump of tomorrow. So, I think his surrogates, the Commerce Secretary, the Treasury Secretary, the U.S. Trade Representative, they are going to continually be briefing him on whether trading partners are fulfilling these commitments. And so I think there is sustainable leverage there to ensure that the commitments made by trading partners are actually followed through on. But you can bet that the White House will be watching.
At Sun Exchange, we make going solar simple, profitable, and completely risk-free. Join over 100 satisfied South African customers already enjoying the benefits of risk-free solar. Start saving today. Visit sunexchange.com and join the solar revolution.
Our focus now on the investment story of the decade, or perhaps of all time. It is the highest rated stock ever on any stock market. The name is Palantir, we had the very good fortune of putting this into the BizNews portfolios, the model portfolios, 3 years ago. Since then, the stock after yesterday's increase is up 20 times. Now, if you get a 10-bagger, you're doing pretty well. If you get a 20-bagger, well, that's kind of not seen by many people in their lifetimes. But there we have it. That's what's happened with Palantir. And of course, the question now is, sure, should you be taking profits? Should you be dumping? Should you be looking elsewhere? Let's have a look at 2 reports on this, starting off with our partners at Bloomberg, where the veteran reporter Tom Keane got together with Paul Sweeney and Lisa Matteo to speak about Palantir as the headline in the Bloomberg Stock Mover podcast.
Let's take a look at some stocks on the move today. I'm Tom Keane with Paul Sweeney and Bloomberg's Lisa Matteo.
I want us to start with the strong earnings report from Palantir. Ticker PLTR. Its shares have been up as much as 6% before the bell. So here's the thing. It reported a 48% increase in revenue for the second quarter, more than $1 billion, raised its revenue outlook for the full year. And Palantir has seen its stock price surge more than 500% over the past year. It's incredible, thanks to a few things, right? You have high expectations from investors, growth in demand for AI tools, and it has this deep reach in both the private and public sectors, because remember, its U.S. government revenue climbed 53% in the quarter, plays a key role. U.S. government contractor, too, on top of it.
But
it's huge for them.
It's not Mag 7. It has 4,001 employees out of Denver. Good morning. I mean, Paul.
But here's the valuation
that
Tom will appreciate. On a trailing 12-month basis, PE 500 times. But going forward, it's only 250 times. So it's earning its way into its multiple time, as the kids would say. So there you go.
Ives is like gung-ho on
I know. And he was.
Dan Ives' favorite.
Dan Ives was late to this name. He was one of the, he just was well into it's being a public company. But he pounded the table and he was right.
Brad Zelnick at Deutsche Bank has a hold on it right now.
Yep.
Lisa, next.
Yeah, and those commercial contracts on top of the government ones is huge for them.
Well, that's the Bloomberg guys saying, whoa, what's going on here? 250 times projected profits. And I remember the late Jack Shapiro, when I was a young journalist on a radio show one day. He was with Merrill Lynch in South Africa. And he said that anything that is going to, that you have to wait more than 100 years to get your money back is crazy, because very few of us live that long. It's a similar theme from our partners at the Financial Times of London. This morning in the FT News Briefing, the host of that program, Mark Filipino, pulled in John Foley, who is the head of the prestigious Lex column. It's the part of the Financial Times where they focus on investment propositions. Let's take a listen.
Palantir is growing at an almost dizzying pace, but are investors too optimistic about Palantir? The FT's John Foley thinks so. He writes about the tech sector for our Lex column. First off, can you just give me some background on Palantir as a company?
So one of the strange things about Palantir is that it is an enormously successful investment story, right? And yet, if you went out into the street and asked people what Palantir does, they would probably look at you blankly more often than not. It's not a company that people understand. And that's because what it does is very abstract and complex. It takes data that's sprawling in different places in companies and government agencies, and it creates a kind of software layer that allows them to crunch all that data in different ways and use it to make better decisions. And that can be anything from like making breakfast cereal to like making your drone strikes more precise. Because one of the other things to know about Palantir is that it is unapologetically interested in helping the US fight wars.
Okay, so give me the argument for Palantir being overvalued.
So really simply put, when you look at how expensive Palantir is as a multiple of revenue, which is a common thing that investors look at, is trading at about 80 times the revenue that analysts expect it to make in the next year. That's about a valuation of about $400 billion. I couldn't find a single tech company that has ever traded at that kind of multiple. I looked at Tesla, I looked at Apple, I looked at even some of the kind of meme stock tech firms. None of them have even been close to that 80 times. It's just pure exuberance.
What does it have to say about its valuation?
But Palantir is growing really quickly. Like, its revenue growth is really very impressive indeed. It grew its number of US customers by 64%, and the amount of money it made from those customers almost doubled. Now, they also have this metric that they tout. Alex Karp likes to talk about what he calls the rule of 40, which is a kind of an old Silicon Valley measurement that venture capitalists like to use. And it's where you take the percentage sales growth you're making and you add it to your operating profit margin. And if the result is more than 40, that's supposed to be a good thing. Now, Palantir's rule of 40 score is 94, which the company says is the highest that's ever been seen for an enterprise software company. I certainly can't think of one that's higher. So they would say that this valuation is deserved, and they talk somewhat obnoxiously about the haters on the earnings call. On Monday, they were saying, sorry haters that you don't like how well we're doing, but suck it up.
Being one of the haters here, why single out Palantir? A lot of tech companies seem to be overvalued right now.
I just want to be clear that I'm not a Palantir hater. They've got a great product. They've got a great pitch. It's just that you can both be a really good company performing strongly and be horribly overvalued. And I think in this case, it's hard to argue that Palantir is not overvalued. Palantir is kind of behaving like a meme stock, and that's kind of detached from fundamentals. And that's an exaggerated version of what we've seen in a lot of tech companies. Like, tech does tend to get a bit exuberant when it comes to valuations because people just feel good about tech and AI and all that kind of stuff. Palantir just seems to be a slightly cartoonish example of what happens when investors get overexcited about an underlying good idea.
So what we've done, and I think this has worked out quite sensibly, was we bought in, as I mentioned earlier, around $8.50 in our model portfolio. We rode the surge up to around $60 and then halved the holdings. So sold out half and left the other half there. When it got to $100, we sold another half, so banked a lot of the profit. But more importantly, what it meant was if this stock now goes to the moon, it doesn't matter because we've got our money back, we got lots of profit back as well. Whatever happens from here, we're just leaving it in. And we did the same thing with Nvidia, which is another stock that is a 10-bagger. And my goodness, has that not worked out to our advantage? Maybe a suggestion that you could look at in your own investing journey. We close off with a tailpiece, which is about a South African influencer who is hitting the international media. Let's take a look. Smelly.
Good morning from beautiful Cape Town. I hope you have an amazing day.
An influencer's been left horrified after finding out that she swam in sewage. Michelle Sky Hayward recently posted a video of herself enjoying her cold swim, but it didn't take long for commenters to point out what she was swimming in. Hayward even admitted to ingesting some, saying that it tasted salty. It's unknown whether she became ill following her swim, but many beaches across South Africa are no-go zones due to high levels of E. coli in the water, which come from sewage leaks and runoff.
Okay, but funny, poor old Michelle Sky Hayward found herself in some poo. But from a broader perspective, as South Africans, this is not what we want to see. Come on, guys, we're a great country, we're great people. Why do we have to have these goons messing up things like not even managing the beaches correctly? Aish. Until tomorrow, where Bronwyn will be in the hot seat. Cheerio.